The possible consequences of a collision. Former British Airways pilot Steve Landells is now a flight safety specialist at BALPA. He says it would be worse than a bird strike because drones are powered by lithium batteries.
If that gets into the core of the engine, where there's a lot of energy, lots of high-speed parts spinning around, and it's very hot, we don't know what will happen. Now, there's a possibility that that will cause something called an uncontained engine failure, which is effectively an explosion. And that's what worries us, because in that scenario, you end up with bits of metal flying around at very high speed, and they could penetrate fuel tanks, hydraulic lines, may even enter the cabin.
London Underground says it's working to reopen part of the District line as soon as possible after a train derailed late last night. It happened on a set of points just outside Ealing Broadway. No one was injured, and the company says it's working closely with the Rail Accident Investigation Branch to investigate what happened. Britain's first American-style out-of-town shopping mall celebrates its 40th birthday today. When Brent Cross first opened its doors in 1976, Londoners flocked to visit what was then a novelty. It's now expanding to try and compete with bigger centres like Westfield, but General Manager Tom Nathans told Vanessa back then many said it would never work.
Who wants to shop indoors in air-conditioned environment? Looking at a fountain, playing on some wooden animals, it just wouldn't work. It was going to be a white elephant. But on the other hand, there are a load of people like me and my parents who were amazingly proud that North London and London had something that was a European first and became the start of hundreds and hundreds of shopping centres in the UK and in Europe.
In sport, Tottenham will go top of the Premier League tonight if they beat West Ham at Upton Park. The leaders, Leicester, could only manage a 2-2 draw against West Brom last night, taking them 3 points clear, but Spurs have a superior goal difference. Now, Kate Kinsella has London's weather.
A much colder start to the day across London compared to yesterday. The mild air has disappeared overnight, replaced by colder air. It's going to be rather windy, cold and unsettled today. And by unsettled, I mean lots of showers. Some quite heavy showers as well, which could fall a little bit wintry, perhaps over higher ground. It's going to feel cold as well as the wind switches to a northwesterly. We're looking at a maximum of 9 Celsius, but it's not going to feel like that at all. Overnight tonight, the showers continue. Further outbreaks of rain. We hang on to the breeze again. The rain could fall a little bit wintry, a little bit of sleet and snow mixed in, again over higher ground more likely. Minimum temperature down to 2 or 3 Celsius. For tomorrow, it's a quieter day. Lots of cloud, maybe 1 or 2 showers, but it is dry. The wind a little bit lighter, but it is still going to feel cold.
BBC Radio London, it's 9:05.
Vanessa Feltz.
London's breakfast show on London's radio station.
Weekday mornings from 7.
BBC Radio London.
Good morning, lovely listener. Welcome to BBC Radio London's breakfast show with me, Vanessa Feltz. The day is Wednesday. The welcome is warm and cordial. I am delighted to have your company this morning. The time, 9:05. Did you know that today is Brent Cross Shopping Centre's 40th birthday? It opened its doors on March the 2nd, 1976, amid a great deal of tut-tut-tutting and much prediction that it would be a catastrophe, a white elephant. Pundits at the time were confident we really didn't want such things as free parking. We really didn't fancy the American-style mall model, which meant that you got inside, so you kept warm when it was cold and cool when it was hot, that everything was under one roof, and there was somewhere to eat something or other, although not the kind of sophistication of the fine dining that exists at Brent Cross now. They were wrong, of course. It took off within seconds of opening. There were queues, hordes of people desperate to get inside, and it's remained pretty much that way ever since, despite the fact that the fountain has dried up, much to my shock and horror. Earlier on the programme, I spoke to Tom Nathan, the General Manager of Brent Cross.
This was going to be a white elephant. At the time, there was nothing like it. Who wanted to shop indoors in air-conditioned environment? Looking at a fountain, playing on some wooden animals, it just wouldn't work. It was going to be a white elephant. But on the other hand, there are a load of people like me and my parents who were amazingly proud that North London and London had something that was a European first and became the start of hundreds and hundreds of shopping centres in the UK and in Europe, and was instantly incredibly successful.
Everything changes, nothing remains the same, and that includes Brent Cross. Apparently, we can look forward to an updated Brent Cross in the coming years.
What we'll have to offer is far more leisure activity, a lot more restaurants, cinemas, things that people want to come out to. And, of course, we'll have a better range of shops as well as we become bigger. So we'll be continually accessible. We'll still have the same number of parking spaces. It's going to be a bigger place, which probably more reflects what people would like these days.
I can't stay on the fence here. If you cut me open, you will find the words Brent Cross embroidered upon my heart. I remember very clearly when the doors opened in 1976. I was 14 that year. It was, of course, the year of the long, hot summer of 76, which was great for business. Number one, you could be cool. It was one of the few places in London with air conditioning where you could be cool. Number two, you needed a new white T-shirt because the hot weather, you remember, went on and on and on and on and on. Brent Cross, a love affair for northwest Londoners and also for people who travelled from far beyond to visit and enjoy its delights. Talking about shopping in London, taking your memories of Brent Cross. You remember when it arrived? Do you remember people said, gosh, the surrounding areas will never recover? And maybe they never have quite recovered their former glory. Maybe Golders Green is never quite what it used to be before Brent Cross arrived. We're taking calls on Brent Cross, but first of all, we're going to speak to Catherine Shuttleworth, a retail expert and CEO of Get Savvy, the marketing agency. Hello, Catherine. Good morning.
Good morning, Vanessa. You sound very excited today.
Well, it's a big deal, isn't it? It was a big deal in our lives. I must say, it really was a big deal. And we've already had lots of calls on it. We're going to be taking calls until 10 o'clock. And we had one lovely listener saying it wasn't just a shopping centre. It was so much more than that. It became a kind of family gathering place, a place you went to shop for momentous occasions, a place where you met your grandma for a Danish pastry and a cup of coffee. And also, for lots of people, the first place they were allowed to go without their mum and dad supervising them.
Absolutely, and for lots of people, I think listening this morning, it's perhaps the first place they have had a job as well.
Yes.
And the thing about Brent Cross is, I've always thought about Brent Cross, it's got a very, very specific feel about it, hasn't it? It kind of belongs to the people around there.
Yes.
And it's interesting, I get asked all the time about, with online shopping, is this the death of shopping centres? Well, I think if you went to Brent Cross most Saturdays, you'd have to question that. And when we celebrate what Brent Cross has delivered today, we also have to look at the future and what that means for them. And there is going to be a change in the way places like Brent Cross have to behave to make sure that they're still a really valuable part of people's lives.
So what is the way in which they have to behave? Obviously, more and more people, as we know, online shopping. When Brent Cross was created in 1976, such a thing hadn't been invented. The idea that you would actually shop in your dressing gown from your own house without having to leave the house to do it. Now there's a whole new way of acquiring stuff.
Absolutely, but the thing for Brent Cross is to make sure that they still get people in there. And what they need to do, that means is they need to do the things that Tom was telling you about. So make sure it becomes an entertainment and a leisure destination as well as a shopping centre. So putting things in, like you talked about the fine dining a few moments ago, but yes. It's got to be the best place to go and eat. It's got to be the best place to go and see the cinema, and it needs to put on events. I think last summer they did the beach, didn't they, in Brent Cross. So we need lots of reasons to visit. The other thing is that whilst we have got a real love affair in Britain with shopping and with online shopping,
yes,
one of the things that can make it work is doing click and collect. And lots of shopping centres now make it easy for you to go and collect your items. And that's the same at Brent Cross. I think they've got Amazon lockers upstairs in Brent Cross. And John Lewis is a huge click and collect place, as some of the other stores are, and that drives you back in.
What about the rivals? I mean, I'm talking about Blue Water, obviously. I'm talking about Lakeside. I'm talking nearer and closer to home about Westfield, which seems to have an entirely different atmosphere, to me at any rate.
I think they do, and I think that's one, as I said before about Brent Cross, it's always had a very unique atmosphere, and it needs to work hard to keep that. Shopping centres are continuing to grow. So, we talk about it being the first one in the UK and Western Europe, but look at all of the fantastic ones that have followed across the country, not just in London. Oxford Street, the premier shopping centre, probably of the world, really, to an extent. But if Brent Cross has got the right kind of shops, the right kind of offer, it has got a good catchment, it will get people there, but it has to keep investing. They're spending about £4 billion investing in that and the local area, changing the way that the transport links work. They're going to upgrade the bus station in Brent Cross, and they have to keep spending. So it's a very expensive business running a shopping centre.
And so what about the idea that there is a kind of, I don't know how to explain, the kind of an intimidation of scale. So various people have said on the programme already, one of the things about Westfield is it is so large, it is so sort of intimidating in size and capacity that they prefer what they consider to be the sort of more friendly, approachable scale of Brent Cross. But then, of course, Brent Cross is busy expanding, isn't it?
Well, it's ironic, isn't it? You just talked about in 1976 how many people said that place is too big. it's too impersonal. But because you now know it, and because people know it, it feels like it's their local centre, and they know their bits of it. You'll have favourite corners, favourite coffee shops. And I think it's just about getting to know them. The key thing is being able to get round shopping centres easily, find what you want. And we also like new, so one of the things that the centre manager was telling me about there is getting new stores in. It's important that they keep bringing in new tenants. They keep investing in those tenants, so those retailers make sure their shops look fantastic. And that stops you going off to the Westfields of this world and Blue Waters and so on, and it keeps you local.
And is it mainly about convenience? Is it about any more glamour? I mean, it used to be glamorous at first. It used to be American and strange and alien and intriguing because you'd seen it on American TV shows, that kind of thing. Does anyone feel that a shopping centre is glamorous anymore, or are we much more utilitarian in our response to it?
Well, I think convenience, as you mentioned, is a huge factor. So if you can get in and out easily, you can get to the shops you want. That's kind of the top of everybody's list. I think glamour's an interesting one, isn't it? The newer shopping centres that come on board always appear more glamorous. That's why they have to invest and keep making theirs look as good as possible. I don't think it is utilitarian, because if it was utilitarian, we would just shop online, wouldn't we, when we wouldn't have an interaction with people. Service is still important in shopping centres, meeting people and finding stuff that you want and being able to browse.
Thank you very much indeed. That's Catherine Shuttleworth, retail expert and CEO of Get Savvy. We are taking your calls on shopping in London. Maybe you remember the butcher's boy on his bike, the delivery, the personal delivery of your order of a pound of apples, a cauliflower and a pound of onions delivered to your door with a friendly chat. Maybe you say Vanessa Full Circle. I've got Mr. Ocado Man or Mr. Tesco Direct. It's exactly the same. They come to my door with my stuff for a friendly chat. Not only that, but the goods are much better priced now. The variety much, much larger. It's pretty much the same as it always was. Maybe you remember the first supermarket opening in your area. Maybe you remember driving miles and miles to an out-of-town supermarket. Maybe you don't do that anymore. And what about Brent Cross, 40 years old today? Do you remember the opening of Brent Cross? How much has it played a part in your life? 0207 224 2000, and we will be straight back after this trail.
BBC Radio London.
Have you not heard the lyric? Love is in the air, everywhere you look around.
Well, I've heard it, I just don't know if it's true.
London's late night radio phone.
You don't do first dates because you don't need to?
No, I get snapped up. Too much of a catch.
Oh, right. Fair enough.
Sunday to Thursday from 10.
Dating is neither here nor there, really. I think it's slight nonsense, really.
Is it? Well, why is it nonsense?
Duncan Barks.
Let's talk about using vouchers on dates. How would you react?
If that's the worst thing that happens on your first date, then it's not that bad of a date.
London's late night radio phone in.
What a sweet caller that Amy was. Very sensible.
Yeah, sensible?
Sunday to Thursday from 10. BBC Radio London.
And this is Mary in Hornsey. She says, I was 30 when Brent Cross opened, living in North London. The great advantage for me is that parking is free, often finding a place just yards from one of the entrances. Going to Oxford Street involves bus and tube and jostling with crowds and so much walking. It's served like a town centre to me. See, that's so interesting, isn't it? More than just a shopping centre. It served like a town centre to me. Whenever I had a half day off from the children, I'd jump in the car, I'd be off to Brent Cross in 15 minutes. I used to take my disabled mother-in-law there in the car and drop her literally at the door. My teenage daughter would catch a lift whenever she could. She loved the place so much that she trawled all the shops with her CV for a holiday job and worked there for 6 weeks one summer, although the journey on public transport was a nightmare. Now that I have grandchildren, says Mary, I've taken mother and child to Brent Cross. My only criticism is that there's absolutely nothing for a toddler to do there. Last time I looked after my 4-year-old while mum shopped, we couldn't even find a wooden animal to climb on. I'll go on my own next time. We used to love that wooden horse, didn't we? Was it a horse? Was it a giraffe? We used to love it. Just outside Phoenix, wasn't it? Quite near McDonald's. Jeanette says 40 years. Gosh, the first time I shopped there, I was happily mooching all the shops and suddenly 7 hours had gone by. And Fryn says, happy birthday, Brent Cross. I miss you and I miss North London very much indeed. Let's go to Linda in Temple Fortune. Hello, Linda. Good morning.
Hello. I'm absolutely appalled to hear that they're going to make Brent Cross bigger, indeed much bigger. The appeal to me and nearly everyone I know is the fact that it's small. Yeah. It's a very simple layout. You've got the main thing and then one thing going across.
Yes.
I've been dragged by other people to these vast, well, they're far bigger than aircraft hangars, aren't they, with vast numbers and different lanes you go, with sort of streets you go down, you know, and everything else at Westfield and Stratford and Bluewater, and they're horrendous to shop in. they're just impossible to find anything. But as I said, to me and many people I know, the attraction is a small size and the very simple layout, so you can easily find what you want.
Having said which, it's expanded hugely since 1976, hasn't it? I mean, who knew they'd end up with a food hall there, for goodness sake?
Yes, you're right. It has, but it's still the basic, simple layout. Can I add, I do try and support local shops for, all the little things you need to go and buy and things. But if there's, it's not always possible that local shops don't necessarily sell the darning wool or whatever it was you want.
Yes.
And for me, Brent Cross is, it's about 7 minutes in the car. I've timed it, and even if you go by bus, for me, it's very quick. But I just repeat, I'm going to be very upset that they're going to take away the very thing that makes it so nice to shop in. Just a word for people who've got little kids. They're right. There is a sort of kind of an indoor play thing for older kids that you pay for, but without wanting to encourage thousands of little kids to descend on John Lewis and Phoenix and things, the toy departments always have little bikes and Lego to try out and everything else, and obviously providing the kids are supervised, they don't mind them going to play with the toys because, obviously, of course, people end up buying some often anyway. Mm-hmm. But I'm very upset they're expanding.
Are you emotionally attached to Brent Cross? Are there particular shops that stand out in your memory, your shopping history of your life, places you go for big occasions and always do go to?
I don't think it has an emotional thing. Can I mention a couple of shops?
Yeah, go on.
No, obviously, I love. Everybody loves John Lewis, I think they've got enough shops to cover all your sort of all your needs. There's enough choice. You don't need, hundreds of different shops for each sort of thing. I think, and they've got a good range of clothes shops. And yes, I have got memories of going to the John Lewis Cafe with my daughters when they were pregnant, or two of them anyway. No, I don't think I've got an emotional attachment, but I'm just, as I said, it's a practical thing. I just feel really appalled at the idea of having to negotiate some vast cavern that it'll probably end up being.
And I feel exactly the same. And I just like the way you could stand at John Lewis and see Phoenix, and stand at Phoenix and see John Lewis, and you knew where you were in those days. You didn't need all these spin-offs round the corner. Linda, thank you very much. Let's go to Annette in Finchley. Hello, Annette. You were there. You were there 40 years ago today, I hear.
I was. We were just walking along the road, thought we'd have a look, and I saw my uncle just coming back and telling us, yes, you've got to go and see it. Yeah. And in those days, it was one of the first shopping centres to open. I mean, I know it doesn't have the huge
It was the first. It was the first one in Europe, the very first.
We thought we'd gone to Magic Land.
Yeah.
It was everything. And, of course, there was our favourite shop, Marks and Spencer, which is, thank goodness, still there.
Yes.
And as you say, you just walk up and down. And on a rainy day, it's perfect. If it's a rainy day, Monday mornings, we take our granddaughter, Talia, for baby Chino in John Lewis.
Lovely.
And if it's raining, we just let her walk up and down. And you've got an indoor walk, you've got exercise. It fulfills a double purpose, shopping and exercise.
And have you liked it just as much all these years?
Exactly, yes, because where we live in Finchley, you're straight down the North Circular.
Yes.
You can be there any time of the day or night, particularly Sunday mornings. If we're there by 11:30, you get your coffee. There's a whole range, especially up where Leon is our favourite. There's a whole range of eateries and notteries, and then you get the shopping, and you're out. What we find is if we're out by 1 o'clock, that's when the crowds are coming, and we're done and dusted. So it's brilliant.
And the idea that it's been eclipsed in some way by Westfield, that, Brent Cross is maybe sort of it has nostalgia value, but it hasn't quite kept up with the times. I don't think people are saying that at all, actually.
Well, it hasn't got there, but there are a lot of stores it hasn't got. But for my certainly in my late age, it's got enough for me. But it certainly hasn't got the major stores like Westfield or the Choice.
What would you like to see in Brent Cross if they could broaden out a bit? What would you like to see opening there?
Well, I suppose when I go up to town, you've still got your Debenhams, your Primark, places like that.
I
see. Really big stores.
Yes.
But you know what? As you say, you've got Phoenix at one end and John Lewis at the other. Marks and Spencer in the middle. I do miss the Body Shop. The Body Shop closed, and that was where I have to do that online now.
I remember when Boots was on 2 floors and W.H. Smith was on 2 floors.
W.H. Smith, yes.
Now it's just 1 floor apiece.
And I noticed the yogurt place is closed as well at the centre. That's gone.
And the fountain, did you notice when the fountain disappeared?
You know, I never noticed
Isn't that funny?
I noticed when the children's area disappeared, the climbing horse.
Yes, what happened to that horse? It's great, that climbing horse.
Yeah.
Yes, well, nice to talk to you, Annette. Thank you very much. Let's go to Sam in St Albans. Hello, Sam.
Hi, Vanessa.
You used to work there, I hear.
Yes, I worked there one summer when I was a student at university, but it was completely unsuccessful because I loved it so much that I spent all my money every lunch break.
I think that's inevitable. You would, wouldn't you?
A penny the whole summer I was there, but I just loved it. It was so much fun. I worked in a shoe shop, and I could never get over how much people would spend on shoes.
Which one? Not Russell and Bromley?
No, it wasn't Russell and Bromley. It was Carvela.
Oh, Carvela.
Yes.
Is that still there? Is that still there? No.
Well, it closed down and then it reopened as Kurt Geiger a few years later.
And how much were people spending on shoes in those days?
I remember someone coming in and spent about £2,000 on a few pairs of shoes, and I was on commission, so it was amazing.
Fabulous.
Well, I spent it in my lunch break later.
And where were you spending all your money? Which were the shops in Brent Cross that attracted you?
I was probably, because I was a student, so I was probably going to Topshop and to Henny's. And the Selfridge, all those years ago. But it was great. It was such a fun summer.
And has it retained its place in your affection, Brent Cross? Are you still shopping?
I have memories of being a complete and utter bookworm and following my mum round, just reading a book through the whole of Brent Cross and following the red marble patterns. Of climbing into that horse. That was always fantastic. And now it's full circle. I've got 2 little boys, and on my maternity leave, I would spend many hours kind of pushing the prams along. I can't say I go there that much with my 2 boys now because it's not fun with them. But when I have time to go on my own, it's brilliant.
And you prefer it to going up to town, as my mother used to call it, up to town. You'd rather do that, rather Brent Cross, would you?
I have to say, I do really like Westfield, but Westfield feels more like a day out. Whereas with Brent Cross, you know exactly what you need to get. It's much more compact. It's got everything that you need, and it's easy. It's so convenient. It's free parking. It's brilliant.
And it's going to get bigger. And Linda says she doesn't want it to. She's perfectly happy.
That's the brilliance about Brent Cross. If it comes another Westfield, I probably would just go to Westfield.
And when you say another Westfield, what's Westfield got? I mean, it's much, much bigger. And is it just more choice?
Bigger. It's got more choice. It's much bigger. It's got a lovely food court. And there's much more shops. And it just feels a bit more of a day out. It's that bit further away. So when you go to Westfield, you're kind of going there, get there for a bit more of an experience. Whereas Brent Cross is just so easy. And, you know.
When you worked at Brent Cross, what were the eating opportunities? I'm not going to say fine dining because I know there wasn't anything of the sort, but what was there? Where could you... There was Lindy's, wasn't there?
There was. I mean, I think it was probably way before Starbucks and Costa.
What year were you working there? When was it?
Oh, my goodness. So I was at uni from 2001 to 2003. So a good few years ago. I think I used to get kind of M&S sandwiches. And I don't know if the fountain was still there then, actually. I think I didn't eat. I think I just shopped.
You see, this is what I'm saying. When I mean, my memories, and they may be completely flawed, obviously it was 40 years ago, but I just remember you could have a quite dry Danish and kind of tepid cup of coffee with your grandma at Lindy's.
Yep.
And nothing much else. I can't remember what else you could really eat. But the point was, you didn't really go there to eat. You went there to go shopping, or to talk, or whatever you were doing, or to shelter the baby from the snow or the sun, or to cop off with someone. Or if you're in my sister's case, you never went to school. You only went to Brent Cross because she used to get off the haberdasher's coach and just disappear to Brent Cross every day, and got a thoroughly good education there. She's a very bright girl, but never went to school. But what I'm saying is the whole. You know, we keep talking about the obesity epidemic, and now there are how many restaurants there for people who've just come 5 miles down the road from Finchley and need to have a large meal to recover from the journey. And in the old days, eating wasn't really a big part of it at all. It wasn't.
The restaurants there are relatively good. When I do take my children, Wagamama's and Leon are both really good, actually, healthy options, as is Pizza Express, actually. They're not. There's obviously there's a few fast food restaurants, but there are some really good healthy options there. I really love the Wagamama's children's meals. So there are those good options, and it does make it kind of easier to bribe my boys to go there if they can have mama waggers.
So it has had to become a dining experience as well as a shopping experience.
Yeah.
Which it certainly, I don't think, was at the beginning. People can certainly correct me if I'm wrong about this. Just let me know. Sam, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. I keep asking my team, can you give me the floor plan, the original Brent Cross floor plan from 1976? What were the shops that were available? What were the dining opportunities? And I think I just can remember Lindy's. Was there also a small cafe in Phoenix or something then? Where else could you eat? The point I'm trying to make is you didn't really eat much there. It wasn't really about the food. It was about buying stuff and chatting and walking about and looking and sometimes marvelling and pointing and thinking about what you would buy if you could afford it, but not necessarily eating a large meal at Wagamama's or Carluccio's or Leon's. And that must be why this whole obesity epidemic has taken hold. We can't go anywhere now without expecting to eat some voluminous meal when we get there. Is that what's happened? Dan in Shepherd's Bush says, Brent Cross, in my memory, symbolised a much more interesting and exciting place to bunk off double physics. You see, a man after my sister's heart. These days, it is John Lewis with the free parking. And Sarah says, such great memories, such sophistication. The wooden horses and the wooden snake that you could play in, and the joy of an M&S sandwich for the journey home. You see, you take a sandwich home. You wouldn't even eat it there. I would choose it over Westfield any day, but now I live in southwest London, says Sarah very kindly. Ali in Dartford says, I had never been to Brent Cross before my mum came up to see you there, Vanessa, in 2009. Do you remember we did the show, this very show from there in 2009? She says, was it really that long ago? Gosh, it was ages ago, wasn't it? She says, I've sent you just a few pictures to remind you we had a wonderful time that morning. It was great fun. And she says, I never imagined I'd ever go back. Living in Dartford, Blue Water's pretty much the only place I go. However, when my daughter was hospitalised in Mill Hill last year, we found ourselves making weekly visits back to Brent Cross just to get her out for a couple of hours. It's the first time I've ever visited a Phoenix. Whoa, you haven't lived. You haven't lived. She says, it's the first time I've ever visited a Phoenix. I have some very nice boots from there, I'm sure you do. And I have to say that every time I went there, I hope we would bump into you. You see, I moved to the Wood, St John's Wood, and so I'm not quite so close as I used to be, but there's always a good chance of bumping into me there, you know, if you hang around long enough. She says, and I have to say, I do like Brent Cross. She says, it's not too big and it has just about everything you need. For me, it's tinged with sad memories, as leaving Brent Cross meant we had to take her back to the hospital and leave her to go home, which was never easy. Maybe one day when my daughter has recovered, we will go back to Brent Cross on the tube and have a proper shop there. The Carluccio's there is small but perfectly formed and is a lovely place for a spot of lunch. We're taking your calls on Brent Cross. If you've just joined us, you're just waking up or something, the time 9:30. Good morning. You're listening to Vanessa on BBC Radio London on the day that we celebrate Brent Cross's 40th birthday. If you wish to bump into me today or even give me a kiss, cuddle or a squeeze, I will be there from about 11:30 onwards this morning, and I'll see you there. We'll be back with Brent Cross and your shopping memories. Shopping in London, that's straight after the news headlines.
Good morning. The two front-runners in the American presidential race have moved closer to securing their party's nominations with a series of victories on Super Tuesday. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton both secured 7 of the 11 states that voted yesterday, but their rivals have vowed to fight on. Here, around 5,000 London families have been left in limbo after they failed to get their children into any of their 6 preferred secondary schools. But the Pan-London Admissions Board says 94% of 11-year-olds did get into one of their 6 choices, the same as last year, while 69% have got into their first preference school, which is slightly up on last year. A report by a pensions provider says in several parts of London, people may need to work until they're 80 to achieve their current living standards in retirement, unless they put more money aside. Meanwhile, a separate report commissioned by the Labour Party says the average worker needs to double the amount they're saving for their pension if they want to ensure a comfortable retirement. More than 70 doctors, academics and public health experts have called on the government to ban tackling in school rugby games. They've warned children are being exposed to a significant risk of serious injury with lifelong consequences. But rugby's governing body, the RFU, says it takes safety very seriously. London's weather, a mixture of sunny spells and squally showers, some of them heavy, and the wind making it feel chillier than the top temperature of 9 Celsius, 48 Fahrenheit. Now, with the BBC Radio London travel, here's Paul Murphy-Casp.
Thanks, Matthew. The clockwise M25, 3 miles of queues approaching Clackett Lane services. That's after a breakdown earlier on. The A40 coming into town, still queuing from Denham to Hanger Lane. That's after the problem with the traffic lights at Hanger Lane, now taking 40 minutes to get through that stretch. And then the North Circular still suffering westbound from the Neaston interchange through towards Hanger Lane after that problem with the lights. Chiswick roundabout also suffering up towards Hanger Lane too, taking all in all 50 minutes to get through that stretch. Kings Road in Chelsea fully closed between Walpole Street and Sloane Square. That's following a collision. Queues back along Chelsea Bridge Road to Chelsea Embankment. Upper Richmond Road, the South Circular eastbound in Barnes Park blocked at Vine Road after a lorry broke down, very slow on the approach. Sidcup Road coming into town, delays approaching the temporary lights at Court Road. Upper Thames Street, heavy into the city approaching the works by Blackfriars. Now on the District Line, there's still no service Acton Town to Ealing Broadway. That's after last night's derailment to Ealing Broadway. Full details and full information on this on our Twitter page at BBC Travel Alert. Eastbound Piccadilly Line trains aren't stopping at South Harrow. That's because of damage to the platform. That's still being repaired. Heathrow Connect still running with no service after problems at the weekend. Greater Anglia and Stansted Express have delays of between 15 and 25 minutes through Stansted Mount Fitchett. That's because of a points failure. Greater Anglia and TfL Rail also have 15-minute delays through Liverpool Street towards Maryland and Stratford, and that's after a signal failure earlier on this morning. And on the London Overground, we've got no service Seven Sisters to Enfield Town and Cheshunt. That's after a rail broke at White Hart Lane. Paul Murphy-Casp, BBC Radio London. Next update just before 10.
The Vanessa Feltz Breakfast Show.
First for London, first for Londoners.
Weekday mornings from 7.
BBC Radio London.
And Jim is on the line in Watford. You're not going to talk about the Harlequin Centre, are you, Jim?
I'm not, Vanessa.
I mean, if you really want to, I'll have to listen. Go on. What do you want to say about it? I mean, the Harlequin, can it hold a candle to Brent Cross, yes or no?
Not at all. Not at all.
I thought that's the right answer.
It's exactly the same as all the others. The one in Uxbridge, the one, they're all exactly the same. Whereas Brent Cross has always been different. Now, it's 1976.
Yes.
I was saying to Phil earlier on, my sister worked for Barclays Bank and they opened a branch in Brent Cross.
Yes, they did. Very true. Very true.
Now, I'm not sure if I'm correct with this, but I think that's the first time that Barclays introduced uniforms.
Is that right? I don't know. I've no idea, but I remember the branch, obviously. Yeah,
a hot-blooded 14-year-old. My sister worked there, so, I had plenty of excuse to go in and see her all the time. And there was all these fantastic women in uniform. Now, the only other people I knew that wore uniforms were British Airways.
I was going to say air hostesses, of course, yes.
So, it was absolutely fabulous. It was an amazing place when it opened. And
I just want to say, I just want to interrupt, Jim. I want to interrupt to say something.
Yeah.
People might be wondering why you were so overly hormonal in 1976. And all I can tell them is it was the long, hot summer of 76. Hormones were raging in London in 76, weren't they?
They were. And the only other respite we got was outside Edgware Tube Station.
Of course.
You knew well
Dino's.
yourself,
Remember Dino's? Dino's just right there in Edgware Tube, just outside.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You could get a marvellous eggs Florentine there. Fantastic. And cop off with someone that you weren't supposed to know and not go to school. Oh, it was marvellous. Those were the days. But isn't it true that the summer went on and on and on and on and on, and suddenly there was a kind of sexual awakening in London in that year, wasn't there?
Of course there was.
Yes.
But, I mean, as a place, it was a fantastic place because, where did you go before that as a young adolescent?
Yeah.
Basically, there wasn't any place to go.
No.
So Brent Cross was this fantastic place that you could go. Nobody bothered you because, you could wander up and down the aisles for hours and hours without going into any shops.
Did you often go and spend nothing? Because I did. I didn't really have any money.
I was there all the time and spent nothing.
Me too.
I mean, I wasn't working. I was only 14. So I was the same age as you because we were born in that fabulous year of 1962.
Marvellous vintage of 62, yes. Yeah, didn't have any money, but did hang out at Brent Cross endlessly, definitely.
Now, many years later, in 1988 it would have been, down one of the aisles there was an R Price Records.
Yes.
Remember R Price Records
I do.
From many years ago? And opposite there was a lovely little boutique jewellery shop.
Right.
And it was only small. It was nothing like the size of any of the other shops in there. It was just one of the small little shops down the aisle. And I'd been shopping with my future wife, just for a wander around Brent Cross, as you do, because we were young, we had no money.
Yeah.
And so I said, let's have a look. And she said, no point looking in the window there for an engagement ring. They're all hideously expensive. So we had a look.
Yeah.
And I said to her, well, if money was no object, which one would you like? And they were all they were pretty exclusive one-off things. So she picked this ring. The following week, we went back to Brent Cross, and it was gone. And there was an empty space in the tray where this ring had been. Yes. So she said to me, oh, well, it's gone. And I said, well, let's go in and ask and see if they could do us another one. And she said, no, they won't do us another one because they're all one-offs and whatever else. So I said, well, look, I'm going to the Little Boys. You go to Our Price and get me, I think it might have been No Parlay by Paul Young. It was about that time. So she went for a big queue up in Our Price because, believe it or not, people did queue up in record
They
shops
did, and that is actually true. And I have to confirm everything you say. I corroborate the evidence. Yes, there were queues in record shops.
While they did, I went across to the jewellery shop, who I had actually rung previously. The lovely woman in there had taken the ring out of the window, purposely left the empty space for me. I picked up the ring, which I'd already paid for, God knows how, because it was about a month and a half salary at the time.
Yeah.
Took it across to Our Price and asked my wife to marry me in Our Price Records in Brent Cross.
Oh, that's superb. How great. Wow.
I think she threw it back at me because she thought I was such a deceitful person for actually putting her through the pain of it. But, 28 odd years later, I'm still married, 3 girls, and, that's history, isn't it? 40
it certainly
years.
is. And do you still go to Brent Cross? Do you still go there?
You know what? I haven't been for some time. My daughters used to go down with my grandparents, with my parents, who still lived locally too there. I was there probably a couple of years ago, but it's still, I don't know, there's still something, it's very different to all the other shopping centres, I feel. I mean, you've got, something 20 times the size in Milton Keynes. You've got the Westfields, etc. But I don't know, maybe it's something to do with that nostalgia thing or whatever, but there is something very different about Brent Cross that nowhere else has.
I don't know if it's just because we are so familiar with it because we were there at the very beginning. So to us, it's almost as familiar as our own front room. And we really, in the old days, I used to be able to recite the Brent Cross floor plan from memory, didn't you? I could tell you what was next door to what and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know whether it's just our age and our vintage and the fact that we're so used to it. Isn't that why we like it? Because we remember ourselves there when young.
Absolutely, and just outside, now you might not remember this, but just outside I used to cycle up and down the M1 because it wasn't open at the time. They were building it, so we used to play football on it and ride our bikes up and down it.
For God's sake, you're too old. We're getting old now. We're really getting old. Stop it. And then you're going to say, and then your tame brontosaurus would come. You spend a little time in Brent Cross carving your name on the wall of the cave, and then the brontosaurus would come, and you go out, you go hunter gathering, and you come back, swing your wife round your head. That kind of. We don't want to hear about that, Jimmy. We're too old.
It was a great place. I'm sure it still is. And do you know what? It's made me want to go and visit it again.
Well, I'm going today. I'll see you there if you come. Come and say hello.
Fabulous.
Lots of love. Bye-bye. This is from Nicola. She says, Brent Cross was very much a part of my teenage shopping experience. I used to be allowed to get the bus there with my friends. This was one of the big things. You could go there with your pals. She says she thinks it was the 282 to Greenford via a change. It was a whole new shopping experience and I loved it. I remember, she says, I should have gone into London the day that the bomb went off at Harrods, but I changed my mind. After seeing it on the television at Brent Cross, I ran to find a phone to call my mum to let her know where I was before mobile phones. Enjoy the celebrations today. Ronky says, I moved to Oxfordshire from NW10 6 years ago and I still miss having Brent Cross on my doorstep. Let's go to Richard in Willesden. Hi, Richard. Good morning.
Hi.
Hi. Brent Cross?
Yes.
Yes.
So, I have. I've got a fairly long-standing relationship with it. Actually, your previous caller was talking about Our Price, which I spent a lot of time in as a kid. But my mum actually had the shop next door to Our Price.
What was the shop next door?
Well, it was called Dizzy.
Clothes
shop, yes.
Yeah.
Ladies' clothes shop for probably 15 to 20 years.
Yes.
So I was in and out of it.
And how would you describe the clothes? Quite sparky.
Quite, yeah. We're relatively upmarket. Max Mara, some quite
glitzy
brands back then, certainly.
Yes.
And funny enough, so my dad was involved in a business called Lord John.
Oh God. Yeah.
And he actually met my mum, my stepmum, in Brent Cross by just wandering around and going in there. So, lots of went in there and, there's a romantic story behind it, but went in there and ended up being married from.
Wow. So love blossomed in a retail environment. Maybe it's a very fertile environment for love, a retail environment. I don't know.
Yes. I mean, the one thing that I particularly... I've been hearing quite a lot of the callers calling in about the size of Brent Cross being actually one of it, and I totally agree. I think I hate going into Westfield, some of these bigger centres around that I've been involved in businesses where I've sort of had to go in to see what all these bigger shopping centres are all about. And actually, I hate the very size of them, and actually what makes it, to me, quite interesting is that you can just pop in free parking. It is almost like going down to your high street.
Yes.
And I don't think that's just because I've been there for a long time. I talk to people who are sort of, living near some of the bigger ones, and they're just big. They're just impersonal.
Well, I just find them completely intimidating and overwhelming. I feel exhausted. I walk in and I'm too tired to even think about it.
Too many shops to almost think about it. Yeah, it makes it much more of a, if I'm going to do that, I'd rather go up to the West End and at least then kind of be out in what, I don't know, slightly more like the real world than some of these shopping centres, which don't quite feel like the real world almost.
And was Brent Cross what it was cracked up to be in terms of actually running a business there? I mean, in terms of footfall, in terms of takings, in terms of, I don't know how, for example, what I don't know is, and I should know stuff like this and I don't, for example, let's say 1976 it opens up. If you've been renting a shop in, let's say, Golders Green or Hendon or something, and instead you decide to open a shop in Brent Cross in those days, would it have been much more expensive to be inside Brent Cross, and would it have paid rich dividends straight away? How did it work?
I think it was more expensive. But I think, because obviously it was a bit of a forerunner of its time, it was quite successful. But I think, like perhaps a lot of those shopping centres, actually the individual sort of more local owner, if you like, rather than the chain stores, it has become, I would say, probably over the last 20 years, a bit commercially unviable, unless you've got the size and scale of the kind of, Next and North Faces and very, very kind of big brands that are in some of these places. I think it's probably a little bit out of a local shop operators league now to be able to go in there and make it work. I would say.
Which of the shops, apart from...
And that's one of the things that I really don't like about some of the bigger shopping centres, even to an extent Brent Cross now, is that actually there's not really very much local feel, and actually buying local is nice, and going and being able to pick up things that you wouldn't necessarily get anywhere else. You go to Brent Cross to get stuff that you essentially could get probably anywhere. It just happens to be that's the local place to go and get it to you. But, you don't really get the sort of individuality that you might get down on an old local high street, I would say.
Tell me about the shops that you remember, apart from Dizzy, apart from Lord John, which stand out for you that you recall? I remember Feynman's was marvellous. When I used to do stand-up comedy, I remember, I'm going to be a stand-up comic. That's what I'm going to be. New End Theatre in Hampstead. My show was called Gavalt Therapy. This is my brand new show. I was married with 2 children, married to a doctor in those days, and I was still going to dare to be a stand-up comic. So what do I need? I need something, edgy, something glitzy, something, that says stand-up comedian. Where do I go? Feynman's of Brent Cross. I like it. This was obviously the obvious place to go. And I bought this sparkly jacket. It was marvellous.
There was a joke shop down, a sort of joke toy shop. I can't quite remember what it was called, but it was downstairs. I actually really remember the Athena. There was a phone in the
Athena, yes, yeah.
Because, obviously everyone growing up in the whatever that was, 80s, I suppose,
yes.
by them was, buying Athena posters regularly for their walls.
Particularly the tennis player with the bottom. Yes.
Going in and out of our price and music. And they were talking about not having stuff for kids. Actually, I remember all those wooden horses around the... Sorry, my wife's come outside laughing at me.
Why is she laughing?
Well, because she's never heard of Brent Cross before we were married, probably 15 years ago. Maybe she had heard of it. She was in London, but it was kind of a bit north of St John's Wood and Hampstead for her, so she's chuckling at me, it being the thing that was very part of my life going.
Tell her not to be such a snooty boots. It's a formative influence on many leading intellectuals, etc. Richard, really great talking to you. Thank you very much indeed. Never heard of Brent Cross. Come on. You haven't lived if you haven't been to Brent Cross. Let's talk to Swazi in Croydon. Hello.
Good morning, Vanessa.
Morning. Tell me about Brent Cross and what it meant to you, if anything.
Well, when I was growing up, I actually grew up in Southall, although obviously we used to say it was Ealing. When I got old enough, I was allowed to go on the bus from Ealing to Brent Cross with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
And we would go, and we would say we were going shopping. We had no money. We just used to walk around the shopping centre and just hang out for the day. It used to take so long to get there on the bus. By the time we got there, it's probably lunchtime anyway.
Yeah.
We just used to love going around and looking at all the shops because Ealing didn't have shops anything like that. I mean, obviously we've got Westfield now, but it was a really big deal. And I remember when the bus used to get so excited because you could see John Lewis, and you would go in and just browse, really.
Me too.
And it was a real hangout spot, wasn't it?
Yes, completely. I mean, yes, it was. It was all of those things. And it was in those days glamorous because, as you say, we'd never really seen anything like it before. And, you know, in your normal sort of shopping street in your town was nothing like that. The West End was nothing like that either.
Exactly. And we weren't, I mean, my mum wouldn't have let us go to the West End without her anyway. She didn't want to go to the West End. But if we said, we're just getting the bus up to Brent Cross, that was fine because it was on the bus. She knew where we were going to be. She knew that we were going to come home on the bus as well. Whereas if we went into London, she had no idea where we would be. And we actually could spend, like I say, all day there. I remember being there once until it was dark.
And what were you doing? You were thinking about the things that if you had money you might buy.
Yeah,
is that what it was?
We just used to wander around the shops and just go, you know, the clothes in there are really nice, or hang out in record shops.
Yes.
Records, and just, you know, just hanging out, just being seen, I suppose.
And the eating thing wasn't a thing in those days, was it? You didn't
Not
go to there
really.
to eat, and you couldn't afford it anyway.
No, I don't think it even occurred to us to have anything to eat when we went out shopping because that wasn't what it was for.
That's exactly what I think.
One little thing. You'd go to the body shop and buy like a really tiny little Dewberry bubble bath or something for 99p, and that was it. You know, you had the body shop bag then, and that was it.
I used to stalk various clothing items till the sale. You know, I kind of like pray no one will, trying to hide it a bit so that nobody would actually see it and therefore it would be reduced. And
put
therefore,
it on the wrong rack.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Do a lot of that at Phoenix, and you know, that was. I mean, it wasn't an intellectual pursuit, was it, hanging around Brent Cross? But somehow or rather, it did. It did play its part in building our characters. I think in some way.
I think it was a perfectly safe way to spend time as a young person. You weren't doing anything harmful. You weren't hanging out on street corners. You were all kind of just socialising, really. You might just be hanging out doing not very much.
And it wasn't, and you didn't see, well, maybe I led a sheltered life there, but I never saw kind of scary people or groups of youths behaving badly or frighteningly, or there was nothing like that going on, was there? It was very innocent. There were lots of babies and children, lots of grandmas and grandpas, and lots of young people,
Lots
as you
of
say.
families.
You've lots of families, and it's still like that. Maybe that's why people like it so much.
Exactly. I think it's really kind of, I know it looks a bit tired now compared with things like Westfield, but I go to Westfield and I just think, oh my God.
Yeah, too big.
Just absolutely steaming with people, and I can't be in there for more than 5 minutes. I just find it too much.
Whereas Brent Cross, you can kind of mentally encompass it. Well, I'm going today, so there. I'm going straight after this. I'm going to. I will. I'll say hello to everybody. Thank you very much indeed. That's why I was in Croydon. And it's true. And I think for lots of people, it was the first place you were allowed to go without a grown-up supervising you. You were allowed to go on the bus, or maybe your mum and dad would drop you there or something or other. But you could wander about with mates without any money, not get into trouble, not eat anything. I know it's astounding for people these days to imagine going anywhere without eating anything, but you didn't go there for the food in those days. Now I believe it's a fine dining extravaganza, but not then. In those days, you just wandered about. I think being absolutely entranced by the fact that you weren't outside, you were inside, and all these places were in one enclosed area because we'd never seen it. It was the first American-style mall to open in Europe. Can you imagine life before the shopping mall in this country when we were incredulous. Our eyes were wide with wonder. We were innocent virgins in those days, and well, some of us were, and we were absolutely captivated by it. Right, straight after this, we will find out what's coming up on Robert's show today.
BBC Radio London.
It's a tough subject, but you've got a weird take on this. Tell us what happened to you.
I kept thinking, if my kidney's any good, you can have it.
Eddie Nestor's Drive Time.
How do we sort the problem out better? Because the older ones are probably setting their ways. Where did we start from?
We start from that in the United Kingdom, only 58% of families agree to organ donation.
First, for London's news.
You've done all of that without having the conversation with your husband?
Yeah.
What did he say?
He just looked at me and went, sorry.
Weekdays from 4.
Can I say how chuffed I am you brought this to the fore as well?
Or on BBC iPlayer Radio at bbc.co.uk/Radio London.
He probably thought you had another fella.
Yeah, well, he can wish, can't he?
BBC Radio London.
So, does Robert remember the very first day, this very day, to this actual day, the 2nd of March, 40 years ago today? Ask Robert where he was.
I was in Brent Cross.
What do you think of that?
It's extraordinary. But, the reason I was there was, we were, in Burnt Oak, it's just, 2-3 stops on the tube away.
Yeah.
And we sort of watched it being built, because I remember it as the old dog track and all of that sort of stuff. And then my friend Graham Smith, who was probably my best mate at school, got a job in WH Smith's.
Amazing.
Nepotism, I suspect. It's clearly the family lit connections. And so he was there on the first day. And we all went and saw him to pick him up to go after work to see this new wonder.
Did you have to queue to get in?
This new wonder of wonders. I don't remember queuing to get in. We weren't there the moment it opened. We were there actually the moment it closed.
And what did you think when you saw it?
I thought this is the future, probably. And sadly, I was right.
But it seemed...
Because I hate shopping centres.
But didn't it only seem great then, though?
Well, it was new and exciting and modern, and it felt... I remember thinking it felt kind of American.
Yeah,
it felt like America.
Yeah.
Because we knew they had malls in America
yeah.
that you'd heard about. And this was the first one. I mean, I have to say, it's not a place I regularly went back to afterwards. Because if you think about it, I was just the right age to not go to shopping centres. I was just the right age to start going to clubs and pubs and nightclubs and all of those kind of things. So, but
what happened when you needed a nice something or other, like, that people go and buy?
I went into town. I've never... See,
Robert, you're just so awkward.
I hate shopping centres with a vehemence and a passion. But I remember that one was quite exciting for a while. And you could... If on a Saturday, if QPR weren't playing, we would occasionally go there to look at girls.
And mooch about?
Well, yeah.
And looking at girls,
Look at girls, basically.
Yeah.
Mate, I don't think we mooched.
Well, how did you do it then? You couldn't just...
Place.
What,
you
just
looking? You stood in whatever was the prime position.
I thought you had to mooch around and sort of glimpse them.
There was a sort of
fountain.
The fountain thing. You basically stood near there.
Yeah.
Trying to look cool, which is fairly difficult inside Brent Cross. And... And,
if anyone could do it, Robert, it would have been you. Let's say
so.
that.
I certainly have memories of Brent Cross, but I don't. You're right. I don't remember places to eat really
because there was
anybody
Lindy's and nobody really ate. You didn't think you had to. Well, look, let's face it. You'd only come from Burntow.
Exactly.
I'd only come from Totteridge. We weren't hungry, were we? We just got there.
I could have got a sausage sandwich in the Better Cafe
beforehand.
It would have been cheaper.
Exactly. So you didn't really eat.
No, you didn't eat.
And you didn't. I didn't have any money to shop.
And no one had coffee. You didn't go out and have coffee. That didn't exist, did it?
No.
But what else did? But apart from WH Smith's and sort of.
John Lewis, Phoenix, Marks and Spencer.
You see, it was all
and then
old
at the very
women's
beginning.
stuff.
Well, no, it wasn't because there was Top Shop,
was it?
Top Man, yeah, and also for girls.
I don't know if there was Top Man. I think you made that up.
I think there was.
Was there?
No, there was BHS in the early days.
This is hardly cutting edge, is it?
Wait a minute.
I'm buying my clothes in Acme Attractions and Stationery.
There was Russell and Bromley. There was Lady M had fabulous clothes for young women. Miss Selfridge. Oh, come on, it was great there.
I'm down the King's Road.
Oh, shut up. He's so snooty boots, that Robert, honestly.
I am, it's true.
Come on. Tell me what is going on your show today.
Was it 40 years ago today?
Yeah.
God, I feel old now.
Okay, how old
I feel
are you?
really, really old now. Well, I was 16.
I was 14.
You see?
Yeah.
You were a bit too young for me.
Long hot summer of 76. And what a great year for Brent Cross, because it was at least air conditioned.
Well, you know what happened on the long hot summer of 1976.
Of course I do.
But not in Brent Cross, thankfully. At least it was outdoors.
Had to keep cool somehow. Air conditioning or the Lido, one or the other.
What have we got today? We've got
know.
notes and queries. That's what we've got.
Yeah.
I hope. We haven't got many, actually, so if you've got any questions for us, it would be a very good day to unveil it. So send us your notes and queries. Then we got a play called Hanging Hook about Robert Hooke, a 17th century polymath. We love a 17th century polymath on my show.
I like any century.
We've got one of those.
Yes.
We got the story. We got a book called I'm the Face, which is about a guy called Pete Meaden, who was probably, if you're going to think of what the ultimate mod looked like and behaved like, it's Pete Meaden, and it's his story. He was the early manager of The Who and all of that sort of stuff. Alice Rawsthorne is coming in to talk about art and design. And then we got a band playing called Orphan Colours. Very good they are as well, actually. So they're going to come in and play for us. And that's what we've got.
Sounds like a fabulous show,
Thank
Robert.
you very much
indeed. Let's go to Marietta in Tottenham Hale. Marietta, you just used to live opposite. Like Robert, you saw it being built.
Yes, I was a very small girl. We used to live in Renters Avenue opposite, and I remember before it was built, we used to pick blackberries when I was tiny.
Yeah.
My mum told me I was about 1, and then it took about 5 years to build, and then we went on the day it opened, and it was ever so exciting. I remember walking up to where the fountain was and seeing it all shiny and new. And actually, I went to WH Smith's on that very first day, and I bought a notebook, I remember.
And you felt like, I got this notebook from this very glamorous, wonderful place, this emporium, this kind of American import that's landed on our doorstep in northwest London. It was very exciting, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, yes. And then later I used to go there and go with friends. I used to go with my sister and the girl from up the road, Sandra, and we used to play there on the escalators by the fountain. And then later, when I was a teenager, I used to go and meet friends there, and it was like a day out.
What do you think of people saying it's not just a shopping centre? There's something about it that has a kind of specialness about it. It doesn't feel just like a collection of big chains. It feels like something else that has a connection with our real lives.
Yes, I think it's always felt like a special place to me because it was, I think, the first or one of the first shopping centres. And
it was the very first. It was the first in Europe. The very first.
So, yeah, I think it'll always be special to me, and I don't always feel quite right when I go to other shopping centres. I always feel I should be in Brent Cross.
Yeah, you feel disloyal, of course. It's quite wrong. You must be faithful to Brent Cross. This is from, thank you very much, Marietta. This says, this is from another Vanessa. She says, when Brent Cross opened, my mum was in seventh heaven. She could walk there and she went almost every day. When she died, I approached the management and set up a memorial garden, which has now moved, and there are memorial plaques on the walls outside where New Look now is. I didn't even know that. And is that the truth? My gosh, I'm going to go and have a look at that today because I'm going there right now. I don't think many people know about this, but I hope they keep it going when it expands. Love the show, she says. Thank you very much. This is from Susan. I have lovely memories of Brent Cross. My son was born in July 76 and I used to meet my family who lived in South London as it was halfway. We used to meet in John Lewis's restaurant when he was a baby. Lovely times, especially as my dad died 3 years later. When my son got older, he used to play on the wooden horse and the wooden snake. Congratulations to Brent Cross. Anne-Marie, as a young teenager from Sheffield, the highlight of any coach trip down to London was that it stopped at Brent Cross. Best bit of the trip. Never seen the like. For years, I pronounced Fenwick as Fenwick, as in Candlewick. But get me, I bought a black beret from Miss Selfridge, and a pair of bright blue tights. Sheffield didn't know what had hit it when I got home. Good old Brent Cross. Do the coaches still stop there en route, I wonder? And this is Leo. I remember when Brent Cross first opened, borrowing my boyfriend's convertible and driving with the roof down across the flyover and feeling like we were in America. I still remember the feeling every time I go there. Thanks to everybody who joined in the programme today. Thanks to the team, Gemma producing, Mark and Phil on the phones, Ola driving the desk, Robert's coming up with a terrific show. And if you're at Brent Cross, I'll see you there. Lots of love. Bye-bye.